Who's ready for some math? You know what? Figuring percentages is fun, said no one ever. But unfortunately, this is something, if you're going to be making any type of bath and body products, you're going to run into this. And I know it can be confusing, but I would like to try to break it down in a way that makes it a little easier to understand and a little easier to get our brains wrapped around. So, welcome to Figuring Percentages the Easy Way. First thing you want to keep in mind, keep it simple. Now, using percentages is the easiest way that you can increase or decrease your batch size. It does not have to be difficult or confusing, I promise. We're going to keep it simple. And there are 3 things that we want to remember. Number 1, percentages work with any measurement. It does not matter if you're using grams or ounces. If you use percentages to figure your ingredients, the weight of your ingredients, it's going to work. What you want to do is start at the end and work your way backward. What I mean by that is how much of, let's say you're making some sugar scrub. How much of your sugar scrub do you want to end up with? Do you want to make 100 grams, or do you want to make a pound? You know, whatever you want to make, you need to have that number you're already figured out. And then the third thing we want to remember, this will help us out in trying to get these stinking percentages figured. 100% of something is all of it. Okay? So we just need to remember that when we're talking about percentages, we want to make sure our percentages always add up to 100, because 100% is all of something. Alrighty? Now, when we talk about percentages work with any measurement, grams are always more accurate than ounces. You don't have to use grams if you don't want to. I started out using ounces, but I did find that using grams, it is more accurate. It's easier to figure your recipes. It's easier to figure out how much cost you have in your ingredients if you go by grams, but it's entirely up to you. And if your recipe calls for 25% of olive oil, that means that 1/4 of your batch is going to be olive oil. That is true whether you're using grams or ounces. If you're making 100 grams of a product and your recipe calls for 25% of your olive oil, that means 1/4 of your 100 grams is going to be olive oil. If you're making 100 ounces, it's going to be the exact same thing. 1/4 of your 100 ounces will be olive oil. And also, it doesn't matter if you're making a small batch or a really big batch. If your recipe calls for 25% olive oil, then 1/4 of your batch is going to be olive oil. Doesn't matter how big or small it is. And I hope that is not confusing. And we want to start at the end and work our way backwards. We want to decide how much we want to end up with first. You can't figure percentages if you don't know how much you're going to make. And a little bit more on 100% of something is all of it. When we're figuring percentages, all we're doing is taking the amount of product that we want to make and dividing it into 100 parts. We're then assigning each of those parts to a particular ingredient. That's all that we're doing. And that sounds way worse and way scarier than it actually is. And you'll see what I mean here in just a minute. So, we're going to do a couple of examples, and what we want to do, we always want to ask ourselves the following 3 questions. Am I going to use grams or ounces? If you decide to use grams, that's wonderful. You just make sure you use grams for every ingredient. If you want to use ounces, that's fine. Just make sure you use ounces for every ingredient. Just decide which one of those you want to use. Your next question is, how much do I want to make? You may have to guesstimate a little on this if you're not sure. If you want to fill up 4 8-ounce jars of, oh my goodness, I can't think. 4 8-ounce jars with sugar scrub. usually you can't get a full 8 ounces in an 8-ounce jar if you have a fluffy sugar scrub. So you might want to guesstimate at maybe 5 or 6 ounces per jar, which if you figured on 5 ounces per jar, you would need 20 ounces of end product. That would be your goal. That would be what you wanted to make, was 20 ounces. Then, after you decide how much you want to make, you can figure your percentages. And in this example, this is not a real recipe. I literally just made it up, and that's true. All this is for an example only. Please don't try to make this into anything. I don't know what it would do. So, we're going to ask ourselves, am I going to use grams or ounces? In this example, I'm going to use grams. How much do I want to make? Well, for this example, I want to make 100 grams. And do the percentages in my recipe add up to 100? Well, let's see. My recipe calls for 30% cocoa butter, 30% shea butter, 30% mango butter, 10% sweet almond oil. If I add all of these together, 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 10, I get 100%. So yes, my percentages in my recipe add up to 100%. So, still thinking about making a 100 gram batch. If I'm going to assign 30% of my total batch weight to cocoa butter, I find that that is going to be 30 grams. That's what my weight is going to be. This percentage, 30% cocoa butter, will be converted to 30 grams. Same thing for shea, same thing for mango. Sweet almond oil is 10%. So when I figure 10% of my total batch weight of 100 grams, I get 10 grams. The same holds true even if it's 100 ounces. 30% of 100 ounces is going to be 30 ounces. 30% of shea butter is going to be 30 ounces. You get where I'm going with this. So let's break this down just a little bit further. Alright, here's exactly how to figure the amounts. You want to take your total batch weight and multiply it by the percentage. So on your calculator, for our 100 grams, on your calculator, you would actually punch in 100 times 30% equals, and you would get 30 grams. That way you would know that 30% of this batch is going to be assigned to 30 grams of cocoa butter. I hope that's not confusing. Same thing with the shea butter. We're going to use this formula right here. Total batch weight of 100 grams times our percentage of 30% equals the amount of the ingredient, 30 grams. Do the same thing for each ingredient there. We get down to the sweet almond oil, 100 grams times 10% is 10 grams. And remember, we've already added up our percentages, and they, oh goodness, I went too far. We already added up our percentages, and they equaled 100%. Now, if we add up our ingredients, they should equal out to what we want our total batch weight to be. If this does not come out to 100, something's not right up here. If this does not come out to your goal, the batch weight that you want to make, then something has gone wrong here. Okay? And here's another way we can look at it. Now the circle represents our entire batch weight. For this example, it's 100 grams. We broke the batch into 100 equal parts when we decided to use percentages. We are assigning all 100 of those parts to certain ingredients. We've assigned 30% of the 100 parts to cocoa butter, right here, and 30% to shea butter, 30% to mango butter, 10% to almond oil. So our entire batch has been assigned to our 4 ingredients that we're using. All 100 parts have been assigned. And we will do the exact same thing even if we're using ounces. So this time, let's say that we want to make a 3-pound batch. The first thing we want to do is figure out how many ounces is in 3 pounds. There's 16 ounces in 1 pound, so we would multiply 16 times 3, and we would get 48 ounces. Now let's assign 30% of the 48 ounces to cocoa butter. All right, 48 ounces is our total batch weight times our percentage, 30%, equals 14.4 ounces. 30% of our total batch weight is going to be 14.4 ounces. That's how much cocoa butter we're going to use. We're going to do the same thing for shea butter, the same thing for mango butter, the same thing for sweet almond oil. So 48 ounces times 10% gives us 4.8 ounces. That's how much of our batch weight is going to be sweet almond oil. And here's a little bonus. You know, using grams is way more accurate than ounces. And actually converting your batch weight from ounces to grams is pretty easy. So let's go ahead and use our 48 ounce example. What you're going to do is take the total ounces and multiply it by 28.35. And that's roughly how many grams are in an ounce. And what you get is your total weight in grams. So our 48 ounces multiplied by 28.35 gives us 1,360.8 grams, and I would round this up to 1,361. Once I did that, if I wanted to, I could take this back and say, okay, 1,361 times 30% equals, and whatever number I get, that's how much cocoa butter I would put in my recipe. I would do the same thing for each ingredient. Make sense? And this was a simple example, but even complex recipes are super easy when you use percentages. You know, when you get into this, you have to figure how much fragrance oil or essential oil you're going to use in your products if you choose to add those things. And some of those you have to watch how much you put in. You can't put more than, say, 3% in your total batch for safety reasons. So you're going to need to know how to figure that. To know how much fragrance to put in your product so that it's safe. And it doesn't matter if you have 15 different ingredients. If your recipe, if all it gives you is percentages, it's going to be the same process that we just went through in that super simple one. You just take your total batch weight, you multiply it by whatever percentage the recipe calls for, and that number is going to be the amount of that ingredient that you put in. And also, you may have a recipe that's your favorite. You love it, but all it gives you is the amounts in ounces. Well, maybe you'd like to have that recipe in percentages, so you could then apply it to using grams. Or maybe you need to increase the size or decrease the size. You can actually, you can go online and find a percentage calculator and plug in your numbers, and it'll give you the percentages in your recipes. The one that I use is available on Wholesale Supplies Plus on their website, and let me show you that. So let's see, what was our example? Cocoa butter, and let's do grams. So cocoa butter, let's say we're going to use 30 grams of cocoa butter, and then it was shea butter, I think. So let's use 30 grams of shea butter, and mango butter, 30 grams, and then what was the other? Sweet almond oil. Sweet almond oil, 10 grams. See? And you can actually name your recipe if you want to. So let's put Anne's Awesome Body Butter. Okay. And we're going to use grams. We're going to put in our ingredients and the amount of our ingredients. And we're going to come down here and hit calculate. Boom, looky there. There's our percentages. Isn't that cool? And what you can do, you can actually print this off. So you can take your favorite recipe that only gives you the ounces. Okay, let's do ounces. So let's say, let's do this. Let's say we got 15 ounces of cocoa butter, 15 ounces of shea butter. Let's do 20 ounces of mango butter and 5 ounces of sweet almond oil. Let's see what we get there. Calculate. All right, there's our percentages. 27.27, 27.27. Ounces are a little more finicky, but it's the same concept. You can still print off your recipe. And, 27.27%, what I would do is, let's say we were making 48 ounces. I would punch in 48 times 27.27%, and that number would be the amount I'm going to use of cocoa butter in my batch weight. I hope that makes sense. All right. Well, I hope that this helped. I really do. I hope that I helped and I didn't make it more confusing or, leave you with a bunch of questions or thinking, well, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I hope it's nothing like that. If you have any questions, please ask me in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to try to answer them. If I can't answer them, I'll tell you I don't know, but I'll try to point you in the direction of where you can find your answers. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, if it helped you out, please like the video, subscribe if you're new here, and I hope you have an awesome day. Bye, everybody.